You have $5,000 sitting in your checking account right now. Maybe it's from your tax refund, maybe you've been saving up, maybe it's a bonus from work. And every single day, you look at that number and you have this conversation with yourself. Part of you says, I should invest this. I should be smart with this money. And the other part says, yeah, but what if I need it? What if my car breaks down? What if something happens? So the money just sits there, week after week, month after month. And here's what nobody tells you. That hesitation, that one decision to do nothing, is quietly determining what your life looks like 5 years from now. My name is NR, and I spend way too much time thinking about the opportunity cost of sitting on cash. If you're someone who has money saved but feels paralyzed about what to do with it, or if you keep telling yourself you'll invest when you have more, make sure to hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if this helps you out. Look, I want to show you something that's going to frustrate you, but you need to see it. Let's say you have that $5,000 and you decide to keep it safe in your checking account. Zero risk, right? Wrong. Because there's this thing called inflation that's eating away at your money like termites in your walls. Over the last 3 years, inflation has averaged around 5.2% annually, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. That means your $5,000? In real purchasing power, it's worth about $4,260 today if you've been sitting on it since 2021. You've lost $740 in value by literally doing nothing. But here's where it gets really interesting. If instead, 3 years ago, you had put that same $5,000 into a basic S&P 500 index fund, even with all the market volatility we've seen, you'd have approximately $6,850 today. That's a difference of $2,590. Let me say that again. The decision to do nothing versus do something cost you over $2,500 in 3 years. Now you might be thinking, okay, NR, but that's hindsight. How was I supposed to know the market would go up? And that's exactly the wrong question. Here's what most people don't realize. You don't need to know what the market's going to do. You need to understand what your money's definitely going to do if you leave it sitting there. And what it's definitely going to do is lose value. The 5-year framework. Here's the thing. 5 years is this magical timeline that most people completely ignore when they're making financial decisions. It's long enough that compound growth actually matters, but it's short enough that you can actually visualize where you'll be. Think about where you were 5 years ago, 2020. What was your life like? What were you worried about? What did you think you'd be doing right now? I guarantee you that who you are today was shaped by the financial decisions you made back then, the money you saved or didn't save, the debt you paid off or didn't pay off, the skills you invested in or didn't invest in. And 5 years from today, in 2030, you're going to look back at this moment right now and feel exactly the same way. So let's talk about what that $5,000 actually represents. Because it's not just $5,000, it's a decision point, it's a fork in the road. Path A, the safety trap. Path A is what I call the safety trap. You keep the money liquid, you keep it accessible, you tell yourself you're being responsible, being cautious, being smart. And look, I get it. The financial media has traumatized an entire generation. 2008 happened. 2020 happened. People saw their parents lose homes, lose retirement accounts. So the instinct is, keep everything safe, keep everything close. But here's the psychological trick your brain is playing on you. Your brain is weighing the pain of potential loss way heavier than the pleasure of potential gain. There's actually a term for this in behavioral economics. It's called loss aversion. And studies show that the pain of losing money is about twice as powerful psychologically as the pleasure of gaining the same amount. So when you look at that $5,000, your brain is screaming, don't lose this. You worked hard for this. And that voice is so loud that it drowns out the quieter truth. You're already losing it. Let me show you the math on Path A over 5 years. You keep $5,000 in a checking account, earning essentially nothing. Let's be generous and say 0.5% interest. With average inflation of 3% per year, which is actually the Fed's target rate, lower than what we've been seeing, here's what happens. Year 1. $5,025 nominal value, $4,854 real value. Year 2. $5,050 nominal value, $4,000 $711 real value. Year 3, $5,076 nominal value, $4,572 real value. Year 4, $5,101 nominal value, $4,435 real value. Year 5, $5,127 nominal value, $4,302 real value. You still have $5,000, but you can buy about $700 less with it than you could today. That's 14% of your purchasing power just gone, evaporated, and you can't get it back. Path B, the growth mindset. Now let's look at Path B. You take that same $5,000 and you invest it. Not in some risky crypto scheme or some hot stock tip, just a boring, simple, broad market index fund. The S&P 500 has averaged about 10% annual returns over the last 50 years. Now, before you jump in the comments, yes, I know past performance doesn't guarantee future results. But here's what's interesting. Over any 5-year period since 1950, the S&P 500 has been positive about 88% of the time, according to data from NYU's Stern School of Business. Let's be conservative and use 8% average annual returns to account for some volatility. Here's what happens. Year 1, $5,400. Year 2, $5,832. Year 3, $6,299. Year 4, $6,803. Year 5, $7,347. That's $7,347 nominal dollars. And because your money has been growing faster than inflation, the real purchasing power is approximately $6,330 in today's dollars. The difference between Path A and Path B, about $2,000 in real purchasing power. But here's where it gets really interesting. This isn't just about the money, the invisible costs. See, when you choose Path A, when you keep that money sitting and checking, you're not just losing purchasing power. You're teaching yourself a lesson about money that's going to follow you for the rest of your life. You're teaching yourself that money is something to be afraid of losing, not something to be deployed strategically. You're teaching yourself that safe means stagnant. You're teaching yourself that you're not the kind of person who invests. And that identity, that belief about who you are, it shapes every financial decision you make after this one. I see this all the time. Someone keeps $5,000 in checking for safety. Then it becomes $10,000, then $20,000, and they tell themselves the same story. I'll invest it when I have enough, when I understand it better, when the market's less uncertain. But the market is always uncertain. That's the whole point. And enough is a moving target that you'll never hit because your psychology is broken. According to a 2023 survey by Bankrate, the average American has about $5,011 in their savings account. And here's the kicker. 28% of Americans have more than 3 months of expenses in savings, earning basically nothing, while simultaneously not investing for retirement beyond their 401k match, if they even get that. That's not being cautious, that's being scared, and fear is expensive. The emergency fund trap. Now you might be thinking, but NR, what about my emergency fund? Dave Ramsey says I need 3 to 6 months of expenses saved before I invest anything. Look, I have a lot of respect for Dave Ramsey. He's helped millions of people get out of debt. But this advice? It's creating a generation of people who are terrified to invest. Here's what most people don't realize. Your emergency fund doesn't need to be in a checking account earning nothing. You can keep 3 months in a high-yield savings account earning 4 to 5% right now, and you can invest everything beyond that. But more importantly, the psychological weight of needing 6 months of expenses before you can invest means that someone earning $50,000 a year thinks they need to save $25,000 before they can start building wealth. That could take years. And in those years, they're losing to inflation and missing out on compound growth. The opportunity cost of that delay is massive. Let me give you a real example. 2 people, both 25 years old, both earning the same income. Person A follows the conventional advice. They save aggressively for 3 years to build a $20,000 emergency fund. Then at age 28, they start investing $500 a month. Person B builds a $5,000 emergency fund in checking, then immediately starts investing $500 a month while building another $10,000 in a high-yield savings account over the next 2 years. By age 40, Assuming 8% returns, person B has about $35,000 more than person A. That's the cost of waiting. That's the cost of being too cautious. The psychology of regret. Here's the thing that really gets me. When I talk to people in their 40 seconds and 50 seconds about their biggest financial regrets, do you know what they say? They never say, I wish I had kept more money in checking. They never say, I wish I had been more cautious. What they say is, I wish I had started investing earlier. I wish I had taken advantage of compound growth when I was younger. I wish I hadn't been so afraid. Because here's what happens. When you're 30 and you don't invest, you tell yourself you'll start next year. When you're 35 and you haven't invested, you feel behind, but you tell yourself there's still time. When you're 45 and you still haven't built wealth, panic starts to set in. And when you're 55 and retirement is 10 years away, you realize that the decision you made at 30 to keep that money safe, that decision compounded into a completely different life trajectory. The pain of regret is so much worse than the pain of temporary market volatility. The $5,000 decision. So let's bring this back to that $5,000 sitting in your checking account right now. That money is not neutral. It's not just waiting. Every day it sits there, it's making a choice for you. It's choosing path A. It's choosing inflation. It's choosing to teach you that you're someone who waits instead of someone who acts. And the crazy thing? The actual mechanics of changing this are absurdly simple. You open a brokerage account, Fidelity, Vanguard, Schwab, it doesn't matter, takes 15 minutes, you transfer the money, you buy a broad market index fund, done. The whole process takes less time than watching this video. But the psychological barrier? That's massive. That's where people get stuck. So let me tell you what you're actually afraid of. You're afraid that you'll invest this money, the market will drop 20%, and you'll feel stupid. You'll feel like you made a mistake. You'll feel like you should have just kept it safe. And here's what I need you to understand. That feeling is temporary. Market dips are temporary. But the decision to never start, that's permanent. The specific action plan. Okay, so here's exactly what you do with that $5,000. And I want you to do this in the next 48 hours before you talk yourself out of it. Step 1. Keep $1,000 of it in your checking account as an immediate buffer. This is the hot water heater broke fund. This gives you breathing room. Step 2. Put $2,000 in a high-yield savings account. Right now, you can get 4.5 to 5% at Marcus, Ally, or a dozen other banks. This is the beginning of your real emergency fund. It's still liquid, but at least it's keeping pace with inflation. Step 3. Invest the remaining $2,000. Open a brokerage account if you don't have one. Buy a total market index fund like VTI or a S&P 500 fund like VOO. Set up automatic monthly contributions of whatever you can afford, even if it's just $100 a month. That's it. You've now positioned yourself for path B. You've kept liquidity, you've earned actual interest on your emergency fund, and you've started building wealth. And here's what's going to happen. In 6 months, you're going to look at your investment account and see that it's grown. Maybe it's at $2,300. Maybe it's at $2,500. And something's going to shift in your brain. You're going to think, oh, I'm someone who invests. And that identity shift, that's worth more than the returns. Because once you see yourself as an investor, you start making different decisions. You start looking for ways to invest more. You start understanding tax-advantaged accounts. You start thinking about growth instead of just safety. The 5-year vision. Let me paint you 2 pictures of 5 years from now, 2030. Picture 1. You kept the money safe. You still have your $5,000, give or take. It's in checking. You feel secure, but your life looks basically the same as it does today. You're still living paycheck to paycheck. You're still stressed about money. You're still telling yourself you'll start investing someday. And now you're 5 years older with 5 years less time to build wealth. Picture 2. You invested. Your initial $2,000 has grown to about $2,900. But more importantly, you've been adding $100 a month for 5 years. That's another $6,000 contributed, which with growth is now about $7,400. Your total invested? Around $10,300. And for the first time in your life, you have a real investment portfolio. You understand how markets work because you've lived through the ups and downs. You've become someone who thinks about compound growth, about tax strategy, about long-term wealth building. Your entire relationship with money has transformed. Which person do you want to be? Look, here's the truth that nobody wants to say out loud. Most people never build wealth not because they don't earn enough, but because they never start. They wait for perfect conditions that never come. They wait to feel ready, when ready is just another word for comfortable with uncertainty. That $5,000 sitting in your checking account right now, it's a test. It's asking you, who are you going to be? Are you going to be someone who acts or someone who waits? Because I promise you, 5 years from now, you're going to look back at this moment, and you're either going to be grateful that you started, or you're going to be kicking yourself for waiting another 5 years. The decision that changes your next 5 years isn't complicated. It's not some secret strategy or some complex financial maneuver. It's just choosing to start. Thanks for watching. If this helped you think differently about that money sitting in your account, hit that subscribe button, give this video a thumbs up, and drop a comment letting me know what you're going to do with your $5,000. I read every single comment. I'll see you in the next one.